The mansion on Willow Creek stood like a fortress at the edge of town. Its tall black gates were always shut, its windows veiled by heavy curtains, and its gardens trimmed to precision, as if no leaf was allowed to wander free. Neighbors often whispered about the house, about the family that owned it, the Whitmores. Some said they were cursed. Others believed they were simply too powerful to care about the world beyond their gates. Inside, Eleanor Whitmore paced across the marbled floor of the drawing room. Her hands trembled as she held a folded letter, its seal freshly broken. She had read the words 3 times already, but each time her heart sank deeper into despair. The message was short, formal, and merciless. Your daughter will marry Samuel Hart by the end of this month. The arrangements have been finalized. Do not resist. No signature. No explanation. Yet Eleanor knew exactly who had sent it. Samuel Hart was not just any man. He was the heir to the Hart family empire, a dynasty built on oil, steel, and fear. Rumors followed him everywhere, the coldness in his eyes, the way his voice could silence an entire room, the trail of broken lives he left behind. People said Samuel never smiled, never forgave, never forgot. He was the kind of man who dealt in control, not affection. And now he had chosen Eleanor's daughter, Amelia. "Amelia," Eleanor whispered, pressing the letter to her chest. "How will I tell you this?" She had raised her daughter to be proud, independent, and unyielding. Amelia was 23, with a sharp mind and a will stronger than most men Eleanor knew. She was not the kind of girl who bowed to authority, much less one who would surrender her life to a man, like Samuel Hart. But in the Whitmore family, choices were a luxury. Power and legacy dictated everything. The heavy oak door creaked open, and Amelia herself walked in. Tall, graceful, and striking in her simplicity, she carried an air of defiance in every step. Her dark hair was tied loosely, and her hazel eyes scanned her mother with concern. "You've been pacing again," Amelia said softly. "What's wrong, Mother?" Eleanor hesitated. Her lips parted, but no words came. How could she tell her only daughter that her life was no longer hers to live, that the weight of family honor had already chained her future? Amelia tilted her head, narrowing her eyes. "Mother, you're hiding something. Tell me." Eleanor's voice broke. "Amelia, it's about your marriage." The word marriage struck Amelia like ice water. She straightened, her chin lifting with pride. "Marriage? To whom?" Eleanor swallowed hard. "Samuel Hart." Silence. For a moment, Amelia didn't even breathe. Then a sharp laugh escaped her lips, short, bitter, and edged with disbelief. "You cannot be serious," she said. "Samuel Hart? That man, he's a monster. People whisper about him in hushed tones, as if saying his name aloud will summon him. And you want me to marry him?" "I don't want this, Amelia," Eleanor cried, reaching for her daughter's hands. "But we have no choice. The Harts are not asking, they are commanding. Refusal is not an option. You know what they are capable of." Amelia pulled her hands free, her eyes blazing. "No, I will not let them control me. I am not some pawn to be traded for wealth and influence. If they think I'll submit, they don't know me at all." "Please, my child," Eleanor whispered. "Your defiance will only destroy us. The Whitmores cannot withstand the wrath of the Harts. Your father—" Her voice cracked, but she forced the words out. "Your father agreed to this match before he died. It was the price of our survival." Amelia's jaw tightened. Her father's ghost still loomed over the house like a shadow, a man of power and secrets. He had made decisions that bound them long after his death. "So," Amelia said bitterly, "I am to pay the debt of my father's choices. Wonderful." Before Eleanor could respond, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the hallway. Both women turned as the butler, Mr. Clark, entered the room, his face pale. "Madam," he said, his voice low. "They are here." Eleanor's heart stopped. "Already?" "Yes, Samuel Hart has arrived." The name itself chilled the air. Amelia's spine stiffened, her eyes narrowing with determination. "Let him come," she said coldly. "If he thinks I will bow to him, he is gravely mistaken." Eleanor tried to protest, but it was too late. The sound of the front doors opening thundered through the house. A silence followed, heavy and suffocating, as if the walls themselves held their breath. And then he entered. Samuel Hart. He was taller than Amelia expected. broad-shouldered and dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit. His presence filled the room like a storm cloud, silent, dark, and oppressive. His eyes, a piercing gray, swept across the room and landed on Amelia. They lingered there, unblinking, unreadable. Neither spoke at first. The silence was a battle of its own, her defiance clashing with his control. Finally, Samuel's lips curved into something that was not quite a smile, but not entirely void of amusement either. "So," he said, his voice low and steady, "this is the woman I am to marry." Amelia met his gaze without flinching. "And this is the man I am to refuse." A flicker of surprise flashed in his eyes, quick but undeniable. Samuel tilted his head, studying her as if she were a puzzle. "You're bold," he said simply. "I expected fear. Instead, I find rebellion." "I don't fear you," Amelia replied sharply. "I fear only losing myself, and I will not be broken." Samuel stepped closer, his presence overwhelming, but Amelia stood her ground. For a moment, the world outside that room ceased to exist. It was just the two of them, power and pride colliding, silence sparking louder than words. Eleanor wrung her hands, trembling between them. But neither Amelia nor Samuel looked away. Finally, Samuel spoke again. "We shall see." The silence that followed Samuel Hart's last words stretched endlessly. Eleanor's hands trembled at her sides, her eyes darting between her daughter and the man who seemed to embody the very power of the Hart Empire. She wanted to speak, to intervene, but her throat had gone dry. Amelia did not blink. Her gaze remained locked on Samuel's, unwavering. She had faced professors, politicians, and rivals who tried to belittle her, but nothing compared to this moment, this dangerous dance of dominance. Samuel broke the silence first. "You speak as though refusal is an option," he said slowly, each word deliberate. "But your family's fate is already sealed." "You are mine, Amelia Whitmore." "It is not a choice. It is a reality." Amelia's lips curved into a bitter smile. "Then perhaps reality is due for a change." Eleanor gasped softly, clutching the edge of the sofa for support. "Amelia, please." But her daughter's eyes burned with defiance. "No, Mother. I will not let my life be dictated by men who believe they can purchase obedience with fear." She turned her gaze back to Samuel, her voice like steel. "You may command armies, intimidate nations, and silence weaker souls, Mr. Hart, but I am not one of them." For the first time, Samuel's expression shifted. It was subtle, but there was something almost intrigued in his gaze. His gray eyes narrowed as though reassessing the woman before him. "You think courage will protect you?" he asked, his tone flat. "Courage is nothing against power." "And power is nothing without respect," Amelia countered. The air in the room seemed to crackle. Samuel studied her for a long moment, then finally turned toward Eleanor. "Your daughter is strong-willed," he said calmly. "I expected defiance, but not conviction." Eleanor's knees nearly buckled. "Please, Mr. Hart, she is young. She doesn't understand the weight of—" "On the contrary," Samuel interrupted, his gaze returning to Amelia. "She understands perfectly. That is what makes her dangerous." Amelia crossed her arms, lifting her chin. "If by dangerous you mean unwilling to be caged, then yes, I am dangerous." Samuel's lips twitched, the faintest shadow of a smile quickly gone. He took a step closer, his presence overwhelming the space between them. Eleanor clutched her daughter's arm, but Amelia stood tall, refusing to move. "You believe you can resist me?" Samuel said softly. "But resistance comes at a cost. Are you prepared to pay it?" "I am prepared to pay whatever it takes," Amelia replied, her voice steady. The room grew heavy with the weight of their words. Eleanor's heart pounded in her chest, the fear almost suffocating. She could not bear it any more. "Enough!" Eleanor cried, stepping between them. "Please, both of you. This battle will destroy us." "Samuel, you have what you came for, a promise made by Amelia's father." "Do not demand her spirit as well. And Amelia, my child, do not sacrifice your future on pride alone." Her plea fell into the silence like a stone into deep water. Samuel's expression remained unreadable, while Amelia's eyes softened only slightly as she looked at her mother. At last, Samuel turned away, adjusting the cuff of his sleeve. "Very well," he said, his tone deceptively calm. "You wish to fight me, Amelia? Then fight. But know this. Every choice you make, every defiance you show will echo, and when the echoes reach you, they will not be merciful. With that, he strode out of the room, his footsteps echoing down the marble hallway. The door closed. Silence fell. Eleanor collapsed onto the sofa, burying her face in her hands. "Oh, Amelia, what have you done?" Amelia's jaw tightened. I stood my ground. For once I chose myself. Her mother lifted her tearful eyes. "You don't understand him, Amelia. Samuel Hart is not like other men. He doesn't forget. He doesn't forgive. And he always wins." Amelia's voice softened, but her resolve did not waver. "Then perhaps it's time someone challenged him." The days that followed were restless. The Whitmore mansion, once cold and lifeless, now throbbed with tension. Servants whispered in corners, their eyes wide with unease. Every creak of the floorboards, every sound of approaching footsteps made Eleanor flinch. Amelia, however, moved with quiet determination. She buried herself in her books, her sketches, her piano, anything to remind herself that she still owned her choices. Yet even in solitude, she felt the weight of Samuel's presence, as though his shadow lingered in every corner. On the third evening after his visit, a sleek black car pulled up to the gates of Willow Creek. Amelia watched from her bedroom window as Samuel stepped out, flanked by two men in dark suits. He did not wait to be announced. He walked with the authority of someone who already owned the place. Amelia descended the staircase slowly, her steps measured, her heart steady. She found him standing in the drawing room, hands clasped behind his back, as though he were inspecting the house he would soon command. "You return uninvited?" she said coolly. Samuel turned his gaze to her, unbothered. "I do not need an invitation." "You need my consent," Amelia shot back. His eyes glinted. "Do I?" She ignored the provocation, stepping closer. "Why me, Samuel Hart? You could have any woman in this country. Women who would willingly bow to your name. Why choose the one who will not?" For a moment's silence. Then Samuel spoke, his tone even but edged with something deeper. "Because submission is not loyalty. Obedience is not strength. I have enough men and women who fear me. I require someone who will not bend, someone who will stand against me. That is where true value lies." Amelia blinked, taken aback. She had expected cruelty, arrogance, even mockery, but not this. "You want resistance?" she asked slowly. "I want a queen, not a servant," Samuel replied. "And queens do not bow." Her heart stuttered. Was this manipulation? Or was it some glimpse of the man behind the rumors? She steadied herself. "If you expect me to believe you have any capacity for respect, you will have to prove it." Samuel studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, with deliberate slowness, he inclined his head in the faintest gesture of acknowledgement, almost like a bow. It startled her. "You will see soon enough," he said. "But understand, Amelia Whitmore, you and I are no longer opponents. We are bound whether you will it or not." Her defiance flickered but did not die. "We shall see, Mr. Hart, we shall see." That night, Amelia sat by her window staring at the moonlit gardens. Her mother slept fitfully down the hall, whispers of fear escaping her dreams. But Amelia's thoughts were tangled. Samuel Hart was a contradiction, a tyrant who spoke of queens, a man feared by all yet intrigued by her resistance. She pressed her hand against the cool glass, her reflection staring back at her with equal parts determination and doubt. What had she begun? The game was no longer about refusal. It was about survival, and perhaps about uncovering the truth behind the man who now claimed her destiny. The following week unfolded with an eerie rhythm. Samuel's presence seemed to linger even when he wasn't there. The black cars came and went at odd hours, men in dark suits standing at the gates as if Willow Creek were already under Hart command. Servants whispered about the new arrangements, staff being replaced. Security tightened, rules rewritten. To Eleanor, it felt like the noose around her family was tightening. But to Amelia, it felt like a challenge, a provocation meant to test her limits. She refused to bend. Each morning, she walked the halls with her head high, ignoring the quiet fear in the servants' eyes. On the fourth day, a letter arrived. Unlike the cold, commanding message that had announced her marriage, this one was handwritten. The script was sharp, precise, and unmistakably Samuel's. "Dinner, tomorrow evening. My estate. Refusal is not an option. No flourish. No greeting, just an order. Amelia crumpled the letter in her fist. He thinks he can summon me like a servant, she muttered. Eleanor, who had been hovering nearby, grew pale. Amelia, you cannot refuse. If you do, I know what happens if I refuse, Amelia cut her off, her voice heavy with frustration. But I will not walk into his world with fear. If he wants me at his estate, then I will go, but on my terms. Eleanor pressed a trembling hand to her daughter's cheek. Promise me you'll be careful. Samuel Hart doesn't reveal his world unless he has already decided. You belong in it. Amelia kissed her mother's hand. Then perhaps it's time I see the world he thinks he owns. The Hart estate was nothing like Willow Creek, where the Whitmore mansion carried a cold elegance of tradition. Samuel's estate was a fortress of modern power. Glass walls reflected the setting sun. Steel beams cut the sky, and the gardens stretched endlessly, manicured with military precision. As Amelia stepped out of the car that had come to collect her, she felt the weight of the place pressing down on her. The guards at the gates, the cameras on every corner. It was less a home, more a kingdom. Inside, Samuel waited. He stood at the head of a long dining table, dressed in black as always, his presence commanding the entire room. The table was set for 2, though the size of it could have seated 20. Miss Whitmore, he said, inclining his head slightly as she entered. You accepted my invitation. I accepted nothing, Amelia replied, her tone crisp. I obeyed only because your men would have dragged me here otherwise. A faint smile touched his lips. Honesty, refreshing. She sat opposite him, her posture regal, her eyes sharp. Get to the point, Samuel. Why am I here? The servants moved quietly, setting dishes before them. Fine china, crystal glasses, silver cutlery, everything screamed wealth and power. Yet Samuel barely touched his food. His eyes remained fixed on her, as though she were the only thing of interest in the room. You are here, he said finally, because I want you to see what it means to stand beside me. You cannot resist what you do not understand. And what if I don't want to understand? Amelia countered. Then you are a fool, Samuel said bluntly. And I do not believe you are a fool. Amelia bristled but held his gaze. What makes you so certain? Because fools cower, he replied evenly. They obey without question. You, however, defy me even when defiance serves no purpose. That is not foolishness. That is something else. Her heartbeat quickened, though she masked it with a scoff. You speak as though you admire me. Samuel leaned back in his chair, studying her with those piercing gray eyes. Perhaps I do. The word startled her more than she expected. She had braced for cruelty, arrogance, even disdain, but admiration, that was not part of the script. She forced herself to focus. You think flattery will soften me? You're wrong. I know what men like you want: obedience, silence, possession. You do not want me. You want control of me. For the first time that evening, Samuel's expression darkened. His jaw tightened, his voice lowered. Control is only necessary when respect is absent. Do you think I respect you, Amelia Whitmore? Amelia hesitated. The intensity in his gaze was unsettling. It wasn't mockery. It wasn't cruelty. It was something else, something deeper, heavier, almost dangerous. Before she could answer, Samuel rose from his chair. He walked slowly around the table, his footsteps echoing in the vast room. When he stopped behind her, Amelia's heart raced, but she refused to turn. You want to know why I chose you? He said quietly, his voice close to her ear. I will tell you. Because when I look at you, I do not see fear. I see fire. And fire is the only thing that can burn through the darkness that surrounds me. Amelia turned her head slightly, her voice steady despite the shiver in her chest. And what darkness is that? Samuel was silent for a long moment. Then he stepped back, his mask sliding into place once more. That, Amelia, is a story for another time. He returned to his seat, lifting his glass as if the moment had never happened. Eat, he ordered. Amelia stared at him, her mind racing. She had glimpsed something raw, hidden beneath the armor of power. But it was gone now, buried under his cold composure. She picked up her fork, but her appetite was lost. Later that night, as she prepared to leave, Samuel escorted her to the door. The moonlight spilled across the polished floors, casting long shadows. You will return, he said simply, as though it were a fact. Amelia met his gaze. Do not mistake compliance for surrender. He leaned closer, his voice low. Do not mistake my patience for weakness. For a brief charged moment, their eyes locked, fire against steel, defiance against dominance. Then Amelia turned sharply, her heels clicking against the marble as she walked out. The guards opened the doors. The night air rushed in, and as Amelia stepped into the waiting car, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was no longer merely resisting Samuel Hart. She was unraveling him, and that perhaps was far more dangerous. Back at Willow Creek, Eleanor was waiting. She rushed to her daughter, clutching her hands, scanning her face for any sign of harm. "Tell me everything," Eleanor whispered urgently. Amelia hesitated, her thoughts tangled. How could she explain what she had seen? The glimpses of humanity behind Samuel's steel exterior, the strange, unsettling admiration in his words. Instead, she simply said, "He's not what people think he is." Eleanor's eyes widened with fear. "That's what makes him most dangerous of all." Amelia lay awake long into the night, her mind circling Samuel's words: fire, darkness, respect. What secrets lay hidden in the heart? Empire? What had shaped Samuel into the man the world feared? One thing was certain. If she was to survive this, she needed answers. And Samuel Hart was the only one who held them. The days after Amelia's dinner at the Hart estate felt like walking through a storm she couldn't see. There was no thunder, no lightning, just the sense of something vast and dangerous circling around her, waiting for the right moment to strike. She caught the whispers in the hallways. Servants spoke in hushed voices about shipments arriving at the Hart docks, guarded by armed men. Eleanor received letters from old family friends, some expressing pity, others warning her to keep Amelia silent. Even the townsfolk in Willow Creek began avoiding the Whitmore name, as though it had become cursed. Amelia, however, refused to cower. She moved through the mansion with her chin high, her every gesture a challenge to the invisible chains Samuel had placed on her life. Yet privately she was restless. Samuel Hart was not what he seemed, and her instincts told her that if she did not uncover the truth soon, she would be swallowed whole by the shadows he commanded. One evening, Amelia slipped into the library, a candle flickering in her hand. The Whitmore Library had always been her refuge, a place of stories, wisdom, and escape. Tonight, however, it was a battlefield. She pulled volumes from the shelves, scanning for anything that connected her family to the Harts. Land deeds, business contracts, letters sealed and forgotten. Her fingers brushed over a dusty ledger bound in cracked leather. Inside, the handwriting was unfamiliar, bold, jagged, urgent. It detailed debts, alliances, and names she didn't recognize. But one entry made her blood run cold. Agreement between Jonathan Whitmore and Charles Hart. Payment deferred. Control secured through blood. Blood. The word was underlined twice. Amelia snapped the ledger shut, her heart racing. Her father, Jonathan Whitmore, had never spoken of such a deal. He had died when she was young, leaving Eleanor to raise her alone. What had he promised the Harts? And why did it involve her? She barely had time to hide the book when footsteps echoed in the corridor. She blew out the candle and pressed herself against the shelves. The door creaked open and a shadow stretched across the floor. "Curiosity," Samuel's voice cut through the darkness, low and dangerous. "It is both your greatest strength and your most fatal weakness." Amelia's heart hammered, but she stepped into the faint moonlight streaming from the window. "Were you following me?" Samuel leaned against the doorframe, his expression unreadable. "I don't need to follow you. You walk straight into the places you shouldn't be." Her hand tightened around the ledger hidden behind her skirts. "And what is it that I'm not supposed to see, Samuel?" "The truth about our families? The bargain my father made with yours?" His eyes narrowed, a flicker of something raw flashing in them. "You found the ledger. Tell me what it means," she demanded. Silence stretched between them, heavy as stone. Finally, Samuel stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. His presence filled the space, suffocating and magnetic all at once. "Your father was desperate," Samuel said quietly. "The Whitmores were crumbling. He turned to my father for salvation. But Charles Hart was not a man who gave without taking. He offered wealth, protection, at a cost. And the cost was me?" Amelia's voice trembled with fury. Samuel's jaw tightened. "The cost was blood. Your bloodline bound to ours. Your future promised before you even knew how to write your name. Amelia staggered back, the weight of his words crushing her. So this marriage, it isn't about love or even power. It's about an old debt. I was sold. Samuel's eyes darkened. It is not as simple as that. It's exactly as simple as that, she snapped. I am nothing more than payment for a deal my father made with the devil. He moved closer, his gaze piercing. Do not mistake me for my father, Amelia. I am not Charles Hart. The man who sold your future is dead. But He paused, his voice dropping lower. I am giving you the choice to shape it. Her breath caught. Choice? You call this a choice? Samuel reached for her hand, but she pulled back sharply. He did not press further. Instead, his expression shifted, a shadow passing over his face. If you walk away now, Amelia, if you defy me completely, the world you know will burn. The Harts do not forgive broken promises. And there are men far worse than me waiting for a reason to tear down your family. Amelia stared at him, her chest heaving. You want me to believe you're my protector? When you're the one holding the knife. Samuel's voice was cold, but there was something almost pleading buried beneath it. Better my knife than theirs. That night, Amelia lay awake, staring at the ceiling as the moonlight spilled across her room. The words circled her mind: blood, debt, promises. She hated Samuel, hated the trap he represented, and yet against her will, she had glimpsed something fragile beneath his armor. A man shaped by a father's sins, caught in the same chains that bound her. The next morning, she made her decision. If Samuel Hart was hiding secrets, she would uncover them. Not by asking, not by waiting, but by watching. The opportunity came sooner than expected. Samuel sent word that she was to accompany him to the docks. Business, the note said simply. Eleanor begged her not to go, but Amelia's curiosity burned hotter than her fear. The Hart docks were a different world entirely. Ships loomed against the horizon, crates stacked high, men barking orders as goods were loaded and unloaded. It was a kingdom of trade, wealth flowing like water, but it was also a kingdom of shadows. Amelia noticed the guards stationed everywhere, the way conversations hushed when Samuel passed. Later, as they drove back to the estate, Amelia pressed her hand to the window. Watching the docks vanish into the distance, she felt the truth pressing closer, like a shadow she could almost touch. Samuel Hart was not just a man of power. He was a man carrying the weight of legacies, debts, and sins not entirely his own. And if she was to survive, him, perhaps even change him, she would need to uncover every secret, buried in the darkness of his past. What she didn't yet know was that the darkness was already reaching for her. That night, a letter arrived at Willow Creek. It was unsigned, written in hurried, jagged ink. Be careful of the Hart heir. He is not your enemy, but neither is he your salvation. The truth lies buried in the ashes of his father's crimes. Seek it, and you will find the key to your freedom. Amelia read the words 3 times, her pulse racing. Someone knew the truth. Someone was watching. And if the warning was real, then Samuel's past was darker and more dangerous than she had imagined. She folded the letter, her resolve hardening. If fire could burn through darkness, then she would be that fire. No matter the cost. The letter gnawed at Amelia's thoughts like a whisper she could not silence. Whoever had sent it knew more about Samuel's past than he himself had admitted. And if the words were true, her fate, and perhaps her freedom, rested on uncovering what Samuel would never willingly share. For days she studied him. At dinners, in the halls of Willow Creek during visits to his estate, Samuel Hart remained unreadable, his face a mask of cold control. Yet every now and then, Amelia saw it. The flicker of something human. Fragile, almost wounded. It only fueled her determination. Then one evening, the opportunity came. Samuel had left abruptly for a business meeting at the docks. Amelia, restless and driven, slipped into his study. The room smelled of smoke and leather, every surface neat and polished. She searched quickly, opening drawers, scanning shelves. And there, hidden behind ledgers of trade and shipping records, she found it, a box of letters bound with a black ribbon. Her hands trembled as she opened them. They were written in Charles Hart's hand, Samuel's father. The letters spoke of violence, of blood spilled to secure power, shipments that were more than trade. names of rivals who vanished, debts sealed not with ink but with lives. And then one final letter that made Amelia's blood freeze. The Whitmore child will seal the bond. If Jonathan fails me again, I will take her as payment. Amelia staggered back, bile rising in her throat. Her father had not only bargained with the Harts, he had offered her as collateral long before she was old enough to understand what it meant. The door creaked. Samuel stood there. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes locked on the letters in her hands. "So now you know," he said quietly. Amelia's voice shook with rage. "My father sold me to your family. And you've carried out his will like some executioner." Samuel stepped forward, his jaw tight. "I did not choose this." "No!" she spat, tears burning her eyes. "But you didn't stop it either. You became the monster your father bred you to be." For the first time, Samuel flinched. "Do you think I wanted any of this? Do you think I wanted blood on my name, chains on my life?" His voice broke, raw and unguarded. "I have spent my whole existence fighting the shadow of Charles Hart. Everything. I do, the power, the fear. It is all to keep his enemies from tearing down what's left. And now you." Amelia's breath caught, but her anger refused to fade. "Then free me. If you truly are not your father, prove it. Let me go." Samuel's silence stretched, his eyes locked on hers. For a moment, she thought she saw the answer she wanted, the mercy he always denied others. But then his mask returned. "I cannot." "Then you are no different," she whispered, her voice breaking. That night, Amelia fled to her room, her mind a storm. The letters, the truth, Samuel's refusal, it was too much. Yet as she stared out into the moonlit gardens, she saw movement, a figure cloaked in shadow waiting at the edge of the estate. Curiosity overpowered fear. Wrapping herself in a shawl, she slipped outside. The figure was a man, his face half hidden. He handed her a folded paper. "You seek freedom. Then listen well. The sins of the father are buried at Blackwood Manor. The old Hart residence, abandoned these 20 years. Go there, and you will find the proof you need." Before she could question him, he vanished into the night. Amelia clutched the paper, her heart pounding. Blackwood Manor. The next morning, she stole away. The journey was long, the road twisting through thick woods until the ruins of Blackwood appeared, decaying stone, shattered windows, ivy strangling the walls. The air smelled of rot and secrets. Inside, the silence was suffocating. Dust clung to every surface, furniture draped in sheets, portraits of stern-faced Harts staring down with lifeless eyes. Amelia wandered the halls until she found the study. Papers were scattered, ledgers rotted, but one chest remained intact. She pried it open. Inside were journals. Charles Hart's confessions, written not for others but for himself. He wrote of betrayal, of cruelty, of debts collected in blood. He wrote of Jonathan Whitmore's weakness, of Amelia's fate as a pawn. And then she read the final passage. "Samuel will inherit all. He will continue my work, whether he wishes it or not. For power is not a choice, it is a legacy. And should he falter, the Whitmore girl will bind him to it." A hand closed over the journal. Amelia gasped, turning. Samuel stood behind her, his expression grave. "You shouldn't be here," he said. Her voice shook with fury. "Your father doomed us both. And you've done nothing but live his curse." Samuel's eyes burned. "You think I don't know that? Every day, Amelia, I wake and feel his shadow pressing down on me. I've built walls of power not to honor him, but to protect myself from becoming him." "Then why keep me chained?" she demanded. "Why not let me break the cycle?" Samuel stepped closer, his face inches from hers. "Because if I let you go, the world will devour you. My enemies would tear you apart just to see me bleed." Her voice softened, trembling. "And if you keep me, Samuel, you will destroy me yourself." For the first time, his mask shattered completely. Pain, fear, longing, all lay bare in his eyes. He reached for her, then stopped, his hand trembling. "I don't know how to be anything other than what he made me." Amelia placed the journal against his chest. "Then burn this, burn him. Burn everything that chains you, and choose your own life." That night, back at the Hart estate, Samuel lit the fire. He stood before the hearth, the journals and letters piled high, flames consuming every page of his father's legacy. Amelia watched as the fire crackled, sparks flying into the air. His face was illuminated, sharp and beautiful, but no longer cold. When the last page turned to ash, Samuel turned to her. His voice was low, hoarse. "You asked for freedom. Here it is. You may go, Amelia Whitmore. You owe me nothing." Her breath caught. For so long she had dreamed of this moment, freedom, escape, release. Yet as she looked at him, she felt a pull she could not deny. Behind the steel and shadows stood a man who had chosen her over his father, who had burned his legacy for her. Slowly she stepped closer. "If I go," she whispered, "your darkness will swallow you. But if I stay, perhaps my fire can burn it away." Samuel's eyes searched hers, disbelief flickering into something softer. Hope. "And what if I hurt you?" Amelia's lips curved faintly. "Then at least it will be by my choice, not his." Silence hung between them, thick with possibility. Then Samuel reached for her hand, this time without hesitation. She didn't pull away. The fire roared, devouring the past. And for the first time, Samuel Hart stepped out of the shadow of his father, not alone, but with Amelia by his side. Weeks later, whispers spread through Willow Creek. The Hart heir had changed. The docks ran with stricter laws, no longer ruled by fear, but by order. Families once crushed by debt were slowly restored. And at the heart of it all stood Amelia, defiant, radiant, unbroken. Eleanor watched her daughter with tears in her eyes. She had feared Samuel Hart would destroy her. Instead, he had been remade by her. Amelia knew the road ahead was dangerous. Enemies would rise, shadows would linger. But as she walked beside Samuel, she felt the weight of her chains fall away. Her fire had not only burned through his darkness. It had built something new, something stronger. Not a debt, not a curse, but a choice.